Welcome to In the Room, where we explore the elusive world of casting for film, TV, and commercials. Join us as we interview directors, writers, producers, and actors, taking a deep dive into their experiences with casting and how the ultimate decisions are made in bringing a story to the screen. Get an inside look at casting and find out what really goes on in the room. I'm Heather Kafka, and I'm an actor.
I am John Williams. I am a casting director.
Are you still?
Nah,
are you still doing that? That same old gig?
Not really.
Okay. Well, today we're here with Chris Shea, and actually, would you like to be called Christopher?
You can call me Susan.
Susan Shea. Today,
Chris is fine.
Today we're here with Christopher Shea, a passionate filmmaker.
Chris is fine. Christopher.
Well, Christopher goes better with Shea because the two S's aren't next to each other. So
it's not like crochet when you're like drunk out of the bar. Crochet. Christopher Shea, a passionate filmmaker and creative producer whose work spans independent cinema, television, and commercial storytelling. Christopher is the producer and director of Standup Empire on KLRUQ, a series that spotlighted rising stand-up talent and the Austin comedy scene. He's also the owner of Holy Shimoly Productions, a banner under which he develops and produces bold, independent projects. He has served as producer, director, production manager, and assistant director on numerous films, including a recent collaboration with director Bob Byington on the feature Lousy Carter, starring David Krumholtz.
Yay.
Christopher's earlier work includes producing and directing short films like That Day, which premiered at the Berlin International Film Festival.
Starring Heather Kafka.
I was in that. And toured the U.S. festival circuit. He also spent time as production manager on A&E's Shipping Wars, managing multiple seasons of the network hit. A graduate of the University of Texas at Austin's Film School, Go Horns, Christopher began his career behind the camera as a director of photography and camera operator, before expanding his expertise into creative producing, line producing, and directing. After working in New York City, he's now based back in Austin, where he's developing several upcoming films and prepping his feature directorial debut. Film, television, commercials, theater, you name it, he's done it. Please welcome Christopher Shea to In the Room.
Wow. I'm going to cry. That's like...
Well, dude, you do everything. You've done everything. You do
that's
everything.
The best bio I've ever heard. I need to get a copy of that when I leave here today.
We'll frame it for you and have it delivered.
I mean, dude, you've done everything under the sun. Like you're the guy to call. I think if you need, if it's lean and mean and you need anything, like all the departments.
Yeah. Fixer is the newest addition to that whole thing. I think it's on my LinkedIn.
You're the fixer.
So I think I'm kind of like the Michael Clayton of cinema these days, basically trying to, if it needs to get done, if it needs to get finished, if you need someone to push it to the finish line.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. I think you're the perfect candidate for my favorite place to start, which is baby Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Is born.
Camera in his hand.
Where?
I was born in San Antonio,
Okay.
Texas.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep, that's
And
my hometown. My parents moved there from the Bronx.
Okay.
There you
They
go.
grew up
I
and
know
met
it.
each other in the Bronx.
Okay.
I knew I picked up
So
something.
I had the luxury of not carrying a Southern accent my whole childhood. People are like, you're not from here.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
My parents came here in the 70s. They took advantage of the wide open spaces, the no snow, the no crime. So I have a lot of family that lives back east, New Jersey, Ohio, Connecticut, all those places. But I was born in San Antonio in the 70s, and I actually did get a camera put in my hand at a really young age, honestly. There was like the Grand Prix was in San Antonio back then. There were a lot of different events, like local events happening as well as like national events. Like the Grand Prix is a national race that went through downtown San Antonio.
I never knew that.
My dad had like a Canon camera, and I remember just tracking the cars and taking the pictures and understanding shutter speeds and stuff. And then we went on vacation. We rented like those VHS cameras, and I remember like the tram coming into the resort we were at, and I was just like, breathe, and then go back, and it was just like, I remember watching
Little
it.
Chris is like, okay.
My dad's footage just like shaky, like, come on, Han, get over here. Brian, my brother, get over here, whatever. And then cut to this one shot. It's like the smoothest thing ever. I always remember thinking like, I like that. I like the image. I like recording the image. It's really.
Were your parents artistic in that way?
I think my mom was an artist and my dad was just a talker. He was a salesman. He sold Fords in downtown San Antonio.
Okay.
So my mom was a loan officer in San Antonio. So both my parents worked like pretty regularly. My grandparents would move down and take care of my brother and I. So there was an artistic encouragement that was happening there because my high school didn't have a film program. I think this is before they even put film programs in high school.
I would think so.
Sure.
It was more like theater. So that's what I did.
Yeah,
I did theater. And then I developed all the excessive talking marks on all my report cards growing up kind of filtered into a proclivity towards performance. We'll call it performance when you're young because you don't call it acting till you paid $20,000 and saw some professionals, right? So performance, and that was theater. And I think my final project in my senior theater class was a recutting and a redoing of the Beastie Boys Sabotage music video.
No.
That I edited between 2 VCRs.
Yes.
I did the same thing for my radio, and I did
did
David Lynch.
too.
I did all that. That was so much.
That's amazing.
You remember that? Like all the little joggle wheels and stuff?
Well, we used to do casting with 3/4 like that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that was kind of my launch into my collegiate life at UT, which was really two strong interests, which was film and theater. And I also just happened to be an extremely insane math and science nerd in high school. And so I was an astronomy major for a year and a half at UT. And I was on this astrophysics track. UT at the time, maybe it's different now, they didn't have an astrophysics program, but if you took a certain requisite classes, they would eventually move you to this track, and then you could apply to go into a different program outside the UT's school or whatever. But I got real burned out on that, and then I basically walked over to the theater department and became a theater major for, I think, like a year.
What burned you out on?
The math. It was really insane.
Okay.
I took like tests in high school that were like, you don't have to take any math anymore because you won't need it. And then I joined astronomy, and astronomy, I think it's like a deterrent. They just throw heavy math at you, celestial mechanics, calculus, physics, that kind of thing. And there were kids in my like music electives who were just like in their books the whole time, not even paying attention to the music. And I was paying attention to the music. I was like, this is some cool Baroque shit, man. I love it, So I just always think that I was always interested in art in some form, but just always still loved science. And I mean, sci-fi is my favorite genre. And then eventually, I just became a theater major, and I would go to the Winship building in my pajamas from my dorm. I lived in the dorm for 4 years, so that was really fun. And then at the time, I think I saw my undergraduate advisor. His name is Lucian Douglas. And I asked him, I was like, so what's the deal? I mean, am I going to be able to get a job as a working actor? And I'll never forget this. He said, we do graduate a lot of waiters and waitresses here. And at the time, the UT film program was ranked like top 5 in the nation. There was conversations about Blood Simple and Wes Anderson and Robert Rodriguez, $7,000, El Mariachi, that kind of thing. And so I just marched over there, and it's shocking. You wouldn't know unless you were in the program, but the two schools don't have maybe it's different now. They didn't have any interdisciplinary connection, which is so dumb to me.
Right. So dumb.
The film program should take advantage of the acting program and vice versa. It's like, it should happen.
So weird.
They never had.
They actually cast it for waiters and bartenders is where they.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. If you want to go over there, and I did become a bartender at one point in my life. So I went over there, and then I started the undergraduate coursework there. And the funniest story, because I didn't get into film school at my first try. I had to take a second try at it. You have to do all these things. You have to get recommendation letters. You have to write this long thing. You have to make a 2-minute film that you edit in camera, although people probably didn't. And you have to submit it, and I didn't get in. So I was forced to take an extra semester of undergraduate coursework, which eventually wound up leading to a minor in English because I was just reading plays. The theater stuff was coming into play. The UT English department had this amazing program called Shakespeare Wyandotte, which changed my life.
Oh, yeah, you did that.
It's so incredible. I met some incredible people that I'm still friends with today. I just did a play with this lady who was in there with me, Jennifer Jennings, shout out. she and that program, that they were just great. You know, they built like a replica of the Globe Theater out in Round Top.
Yeah.
And you go out there every weekend and
it's fantastic.
You're supposed to just be rehearsing to perform a play at the end of the semester, only nobody really knew that the first weekend. So we were out there just partying our faces off, going on that stage, getting drunk. Someone found the costume wardrobe. We were not supposed to be in there. And we went back, and the next week at school, it was revealed, like, we will be performing Much Ado About Nothing at the end of the semester.
Yeah.
So the following weekend, we went out there. Everybody's just like, nobody's talking. People are just walking around the grounds because you have like a dorm out there and stuff, and you're just learning and learning lines. He could have
said, we misunderstood Much to Do About Nothing. So
exactly. But it wasn't the case because, I mean, I played a pretty big role in that play. I had already been into Shakespeare in a way. It sort of like reignited that flame for me. And again, here I am, oddly in some English class, doing theater while enrolled in film. And, you know, nothing ever really changed like that for me. Like it just kind of stayed the same. I always just had my iron and a couple different irons and a couple different fires.
You're so duplicitous.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad, but you know, when you go to college, they don't make you choose a major right away. But by your junior year, they're like, you have to choose.
Yeah.
And I remember having a crisis my sophomore year because I was freaking out. I was like, how do I choose? Can I just stay in this place for like 10 years and keep learning? Little did I know it's called grad school.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the money for that stuff. Tuition was inexpensive back then, but my parents did manage to save up like 2 years of tuition for me at UT, which probably amounted to like $10,000.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't until the upper division coursework anyway in film, when you're paying for film and stuff, where it gets kind of crazy. And then that was also really crazy because the film program shifted while I was there. It was the year 2000. That was when I probably should have graduated. I was on the 5.5-year program. But I took a semester off because I was like, I got to figure out what I want to do here. And when I left, I was using Steambecs and shooting on 16 millimeter on Bolex cameras. And we had Film 1 classes. There were some really great professors there. Raheel Singari, Spencer Parsons. He was my TA, my Film 1 TA. Cinema Texas was around.
Yeah.
Kelly Williams, Brian Poyser, not Brian Poyser, but Scott Rice. All these people were there working either in the graduate department or they were teaching as TAs in undergraduate. And then I took a semester off and I came back and the Steambecs had been pushed into a room with all the bins and there were like leaves on the floor. I thought it was like, what the fuck is going on? And you go to where the Steambecs used to be and it's just row after row of Mac G4s with this thing called Final Cut Pro installed. And that was the next thing. And when you went to check out cameras, you know, now you can go down to the checkout at UT and get an Alexa checked out or a Red or whatever. But on comes the advent of the charge couple device camera, the 3-chip camera, the CCD camera, which was like those in-between digital cameras between the really shitty ones.
In a closet.
Well, now people love them, right? Because all the vintage stuff just comes back around as humans are just these cyclical creatures. But like back then, it was like the camera doesn't matter. You're a storyteller. Go tell the story. So you go and you make these really dumb things and, you know, you bring them back and you work with your classmates and that was really great. And I met a bunch of people there who I still am friends with today. And then, I was just sort of like cast out into the world.
What bug were you getting there? Was it director, editor? Was it production?
I think it was always camera.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Right. From a young age. That was always my first love.
Because you love capturing that image.
And that's what I did for like 10 years at film school.
No, I saw.
I did camera stuff. But it was before the advent of like heavy HD cameras.
Yeah.
So like there's no way I could ever like now decide like I'll go back into camera work and just dig up all my old SD camera footage.
Yeah.
No one would even give a shit about that. But somewhere after that 10 years, it was like, you know, I AC'd for a bunch. I was a second AC. I was a first AC. I wound up shooting stuff. I did DP on a couple projects, but I never really went anywhere after that. And I think my brain shifted tracks because I was on a lot of inefficient productions and I just fell right into
ADing.
ADing was the first thing. And then that has its own step up, right? Like back in the days, AD would move into directing.
Yeah.
60s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s. Towards the end of the 90s, it really became more of like you step into producing after that because it really became more of a management thing. And it always comes back to the dichotomy of the artist who are like focusing specifically on the creative challenges of the movie versus the logistician, the one who's handling schedules and timetables and money and making the thing breathe and getting it from point A to point B and ensuring everything's going the way it's supposed to and creating an interdisciplinary and interpersonal dreamscape. All the people who
how many eye rolls was that in one breath?
Like every one of those is a gray hair or like an embolism that's sneaking up into my brain, just waiting for later on.
And then the years after that, you're keeping track of everything too that nobody knows about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All the while, I think my first job out of film school was a movie called The Neighborhood on the script. I think it became known as Fall from Grace. And it starred as its lead star, Gabriel Luna, who you know in these shows now, The Last of Us and The Last Terminator, I think. It's a great career.
Yeah.
As a Russian immigrant kid in a school system. And you had all of these local actors who were local to Austin. I think Vicky Boone was a producer. You had a lot of people who were part of the City Company in New York City who were friends of other people who were at St. Ed's or had been at St. Ed's theater program who were all in the play. Adrian Mishler comes to mind. Jeff Mills comes to mind. Lee Eddy, Brent Wersner. And those people, in addition to the folks I was working with, the Chris Olsons and I think the woman who directed it was named Mary Marchbanks. Chris Olson would become my sort of mentor in a lot of ways as an AD. I was the second AC on that movie. So I, build the camera, blah, 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 whatever. He basically kind of helped forayed me into ADing essentially when the time came. I always go to him, ask him questions about, rates and that kind of stuff. And he was great about that stuff. But I met those people, Adrian Mishler, Jeff Mills, and they were like, you should come by the theater. My mom is the artistic director of the theater program at St. Ed's. And, if you're looking for Adrian's mom, Melba Martinez.
She's great.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I did the movie. I made like $5,000, right? It was not bad.
Pretty good.
For like, I think
it
was like a 7-week job, it was a long shoot. But I spent it all. Because nobody in film school was like, this is how freelance works.
Yeah, you might not work.
I was like, I'm rich, let's party.
You also think too, it's just gonna go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't think I think when you're young, you don't think that far ahead. You live in the moment now. This is the curse of age,
true.
right?
Yeah.
The age, we're like calendars, we're like spending time, we're looking to the past, we're thinking about well into the future. When you're young, you're just in that moment. And in that moment,
you have optimism
Chris had
that
like
it's just
5K.
like, yeah.
Let's just blow it on our friends.
That's smart. I mean,
yeah. I don't regret it. But I was like, shit, what do I do for money? And then I biked over because I was living in Travis Heights in a very cheap apartment. I think my rent was like $250.
Should have bought it that time.
Should have bought it.
That's where the 5,000.
I know. That's where it should have gone. I biked over to the Mary Moody Northern Theater, which was, I didn't really know a lot about St. Ed's. I'd only later find out that their acting program is probably one of the best in the city. They're widely regarded. It's a private school, blah, blah, blah. So, and Melba Martinez hired me as her assistant in that theater program. And I worked on 3 productions and became very close friends, like best friends, with Adrian and Jeff Mills and Lee Eddy and Jason Newman and Brent Wersner and a whole bunch of people that we would eventually start a theater company together. And we started a theater company called the Saint Idiot Collective. And we did Saint Idiot Collective. And we did like 3 or 4 shows. One of them was main stage. A lot of them were site specific. I think we did something called Spurt, which is a site specific piece at a house that Lee Eddy lived in Travis Heights, where
that's cool.
We basically played a bunch of kids that were having their first boy-girl sleepover. And we had 2 gay dads. And you come in, there's 20 seats, and 10 people come in, and 10 people go this way through the house, and 10 people go this way through the house. And every room was like its own show. And
that's
stuff.
Amazing. That's ahead of its time for sure, because they have stuff like that in New York now that you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so much fun. At that period, I remember doing theater and just like figuring a warehouse out. It's just like the creative juices, and it's just like there's no one over you telling you what to do. Yeah, it's so much fun.
I think the combination of like the talent in this group was undeniable.
Yeah.
Because then we would also branch off and do sketch comedy under this think tank moniker and improv comedy. And so I was getting this fill of like acting through this group, although I was the only film person from UT. They were all actors. So very often I was filming shows. When we eventually got,
they're the ones that come up with the idea, and then you're like, you know how much work that is?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I didn't know because I was
like, we should film this, and kind of
yeah. I was like so excited to do it, and you know, they wanted to just come home and watch all the footage afterwards, and I was like, all right, go home, smoke a bunch of weed. Actors watching actors. I've been in this room a bunch of times, you know. I was like, I'm not the guy in the room. But then we finally got to like we did a final run of these think tank shows, which were like, it was literally like the state, you know, it was like live performance, throw to the video, throw back to the live performance. There were some interconnectedness. There was a part 1 and a part 2. The whole show had an opening video sequence that I built with this music, and it was awesome.
Was the state already out at that point?
Yeah, it definitely come out. It was after that for sure. This was like 2000, I want to say 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6.
That was kind of big too, right? The Ben Stiller, like all the shows.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
For no money. Because we didn't have any money. We were just a bunch of really.
But it really was. I mean, at that time, right? It was just like you want it to be successful and you want to get money, but you're like, it was.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Who doesn't want to be?
I know, but I miss those days of just like doing it.
The other thing that you're not mentioning is that you could do that in Austin in those days.
Oh, so bad. You could do that in Austin. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like you couldn't do that
everybody
now.
knows what you're saying.
We were all broke.
Yeah.
We would just go buy
the
some
city
beer.
was broke.
There's no way you could do that now.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I'd have been here for that. I would love to have seen those shows.
Yeah. And then, so I eventually was in another show called The Assumption, which was a take on Hamlet about these white trash ninjas who worked at a tire farm. It was incredible. It was at the Blue Theater back before it became the Canopy.
Idea?
Sonic
I got an idea.
It's so good. We're all dressed in like... So Sonnet Bland and Julia Smith were 2 women who worked in the arts community. I think Julia Smith is a teacher now. Sonnet Bland is a director, writer, poet. She has directed a lot. She directed The Assumption with Julia. Julia was the lead in it. She played the Hamlet character. And we had like live music, and there was a live band, and we were playing, Queen and, the Rolling Stones. There was a really hardcore Gimme Shelter moment, and, lighting, and Adrienne Mishler, she's in the play. Again, this is this group that I'm now like working with on the regular.
But you got the rights for all that, probably.
When you're over in East Austin, John,
nobody's
just kind of like, no one's really bothering you over there.
We're
not a Zach theater, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but those were the years that were really, really great. Natalie George, who does like a lot of lighting design in town now, she's incredible. She has her own production company, Natalie George Productions. She produced the play with Sonnet, and she found a sponsor in Miller High Life. Underneath the stage were like, there must have been 150 cases of Miller High Life. So we were just there every night drinking after the show, hanging out and partying.
So much fun.
Yeah, you just play music.
I mean, I think you still have an element of that today, right? Like you just get sucked in by like a great idea. And then you're now the guy. It's like, okay, we'll figure this out.
In any art, art pursuit, right?
Yeah.
Movies included.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in those conversations where like, I've heard about this movie. I want to be a part of it. I want to do it. Let me figure out how I can be a part of it. And then you get it and you're like, shit, I'm in it now.
Yeah.
Now I have to do it. And now, instead of relating to yourself more, you relate to them. And you think of things like, I was on this feature at the end of last year, and I was like, I don't want this guy to shell out $250,000 of his own money to make this movie. That seems dumb.
Yeah.
He should diversify his risk. He should figure out a way to like get someone else to pay for half of it, you know? But then at some point in your head, you just have to come to terms with the fact that that's not a fight that you can do, nor is it your responsibility. But it's also like, you can suggest it, but to have enough energy to handle that and all the other things that you'll then be tasked with doing to get a movie going and up on its feet, it would be too much.
Talk a little bit about that process for you.
Were you acting in that movie?
No, I was producing it.
Oh, you were?
And ADing. Well, no. Was I the AD? I was the AD. So this happens a lot, right? On low budget stuff, right? I will have those 2 hats. And I still do both. The ADing has become harder in this older landscape for me now.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know how many ADs you've had on this show, but if if they talk to you about it, it's just hard.
Yeah.
You're the first one there. You're
Yeah.
the last one to leave. You're always on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the makeup department, nothing against any other department, but there are moments when other departments could sit down and look at
Yeah.
the phone and they're off for
Totally.
a
It's
second.
exhausting.
When you call lunch, they're there eating. They get to take the full 30 minutes.
Right.
No one's bothering them. You're usually having a meeting or thinking about like what you have to do or what you didn't do, the last thing, going over your notes. You're always on. And even when you go home at night, you're still sort of like always thinking about it, you know? When I lived in New York, the first job I worked on was a production of The Jew of Malta, Christopher Marlowe's play. Some professor at the New School wanted to shoot it on Governor's Island, which was newly open to the public as a tourist destination. They've now changed it into this amazing thing. Now you can rent bikes and ride around it. It's very pretty. But back then, it was still an old army barracks from like the War of Brooklyn in the early 1900s. It's crazy. They got cannons and old, you know, bomb shelters and stuff like that over there. But it played to the century, the piece it was. But you have to take a ferry to get to that island. And the first ferry leaves at 7 a.m. every morning. And the last one comes back at 5. So it's not even really a 12-hour day, which is fine. But as you know, if you've ever lived in New York City, if you don't have a car, even if you did have a car, but I mean, you have to take the train schedule into account. So that is a 2-hour budget on top of that in the morning. So I've got to leave my apartment at 5 in the morning, which means I've got to be up at 4.
Yeah.
Maybe I can skate like 4:15, but I'm rushing. And then I would also be getting home at like, if the thing left at 5, I get home at 6:30, call it 7. I'm getting dinner. I'm trying to eat. So sleep becomes something that's like, becomes very, very compressed in the timeline. And for me, the first week of production, I moved to New York at a very interesting time when I was living in Austin. I'd kind of had my fill of Austin for a bit. I was like, I got to get out. My mom had just passed away. There was nothing really holding me to Austin. We have a great community here of friends. I knew they'd always be here, but I needed to go. And so I did.
And there's a ceiling, right?
I needed to challenge myself in like a real way.
There's also that thing that everybody thinks they're like, if I really got to make it, I got to go to LA or I got to go to New York.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had that thought in my head. I was like, oh, well, New York's got their shit together. I've been at so many productions in Austin that they're just like, this is unprofessional or that's unprofessional. And if I go to New York or LA, I'm going to work on stuff where people are professional and they know what's going on. And so
cut to the ferry,
cut to this job where I was like sleeping 4 hours a night. And at day 5, I was just like losing cohesion for a second. I was like, shit, this is it. That's my limit. It was 5 days.
You
5
just
days
made
of
me
doing
think
that.
about the AD life.
I know.
Like,
you're always there.
Well, but it's like
problems. You're
lowest
always
life
solving problems.
expectancy.
Yeah.
but
any
it's like,
crew member.
even if you think like when you watch the ASL interpreter, right? Like, even they only do it for so long before someone tag teams and takes over because
That's
it's
right.
exhausting.
That's right.
Because you're on all the time.
Such a random
whole time.
reference.
Well, because I think about that, like the AD is on all the time.
And here,
like constant.
and where we got to
and I'm
go.
like,
and
why don't we swing shift them?
Yeah.
Why don't you have 2 and 1?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've never considered that.
Yeah.
But it seems like you would want 2 ADs per shoot.
Well, and that's a question that comes into play when you're talking to people about rates and stuff. You know, for me, it wasn't. In the beginning, it was like, you want to come work on this movie as an AD? Great, I'll do it. Now it's like, you want to come work, what's the budget?
Yeah.
Is there support? What's the
Yeah.
support look like?
Yeah.
Is there a second AD? Is there a production manager? What does the echelon of the production department look like? Oh, I'm the only person?
Are we knights?
Is it overnights
Yeah.
for 5 days? I mean, I can't really, back in the day, sure, but now it's just like, those are so scary.
That would be brutal.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was a big, big thought of mine. And, you know, lo and behold, I'm in New York City. That production was fine. I figured it out, but I was there to work. I had a single bed, no AC in a pre-war building, top floor. I wasn't
Jesus.
having friends over.
Oh my God.
I was just there to work. So you're there to work. You're not there to spend money or, you know, you can find ways to enjoy the city for free. But for me, it was about working.
Yeah.
That's when you learned only AD on commercials.
That's right. And those commercials were great because I did touch a few of those. But I also touched a lot of productions in New York City that did not have their shit together. And I was shocked
Yeah.
because the thing that was different about that than it was in Austin was that they were wasting so much more money.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was an AC. I was a first AC on a movie. We were shooting on West 47th Street one day. The street was shut down, but the cops were only going to shut it down for like 45 minutes or 30 minutes. So we had to get this one shot. And the director is running up and down the street yelling at the PAs, go do this and go do that. And I'm just thinking about 16 ways that it could be way more efficient.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a walkie. I should be, and the DP like taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "You see this camera right here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's all you have to worry about." And I was like, "You're right."
Yeah.
Why is my mind trying to like fix the problem?
Because you're that guy and it's hard. You want to make it efficient.
I always tell producers, I'm like, it's to say, it's like everyone that was here that was, wasn't efficient moved to New York or LA and are now working. It's like when they say we need actors in LA, I'm like, I like the guy that went there and came back because he doesn't no longer have that sort of like, I'll do anything, I give a shit. And they're much more like, I don't know, authentic it seems when I find the people that did what you do. You know what I mean? And now you come back and you're like, okay, there isn't this mystique about these cities. It's about work ethic. It's about knowledge,
That's right. And that knowledge is important. I'm not saying it was any better or worse than any experience I've had in my life. I mean, it was good to be there and see like, oh, people are inefficient everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about like a geographical location. It's about the quality of labor, the people you employ on your team.
Exactly.
Well,
we were learning the same thing on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Exactly. I bet it was the same. Yes. For me,
that's why everybody works together. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You stick in a close-knit group.
Yeah.
For me, when I graduated from college, I didn't want to go to New York City because I was like, no. And I didn't want to go to California because I was just so loathing of LA. At that time, I had started working at South by in like 98. And I'd work for South by. I would work for South by in some capacity, either for the festival or for someone at the festival, film or music.
Like 10 years or something, right?
Well, from 98 to, I think I finally stopped in 2015 or 2018 maybe. I think it was the last year I worked at South by. Now I just try to get out of the city, but
or try to get in.
Or try to get in if I can get in. You got anybody? No, I was doing like cashier stuff for the music festival, and I was a projectionist at the Metropolitan 14 movie theater. That was like my job while I was finishing up in college, and back when before it was digital. And so South by would hire me to string up movies and stuff. And we were talking earlier about how like there's so many movies I saw that would never see the light of day. So good. I'm crying in the projection booth.
Yeah.
Just like watching this guy's movie from Denmark, and I'm like, this is good. I know what good is. I know what bad is, and this is really fucking good.
Yeah.
And nothing ever came of it. He just, maybe he showed it at some other festivals in Europe, but for the most part, he just took it home, and like.
I've seen films
you
like that. You
probably learned a ton too just by watching. Watching all that film and seeing everything and then the contacts.
How a festival works, the inner workings of a festival, where like the seams are at, like how it presents itself on one side, but there's this other side that's like, maybe we'll get to this or whatever. Woody Harrelson had a doc about weed. I think it was called Reefer Madness. Maybe it was just about marijuana, and I was like, this is cool, and it was playing.
So, real quick, what's your advice to filmmakers for festivals? Like, what was?
Well, it just depends. It depends a lot now. I tend to try and talk to peers that I know who are working in different markets about the festival experience they've had, especially if they've gone to places like Sundance and Tribeca or stuff like that. But usually, it's about the film.
Yeah.
It's always about the film. We worked on a movie called That Day, which was this young lady named Stephanie Ard, who is really smart beyond her years. And I'm a big, big, big fan of hers. And I champion her all the time. And she lives in New York now. I think she's working on her first big feature in New York with some pretty big actors. She wanted to make a personal story about her youth. Heather was one of the actors. Carol Hickey was one of the actors. And it got accepted to Berlin. Her first short film went to Berlin. And for the longest time, I couldn't understand. I mean, it's good. I think it's good. I just didn't. It wasn't a movie that I was like, this wouldn't go to South by. This wouldn't go to, Maryland even, or, I don't know, whatever. And then it occurred to me that like the audiences in Europe, especially non-English speaking Western Europe, maybe even Eastern Europe, the storyline, the subject matter of the movie would be very, very interesting to them because it's about a young girl dealing with the grief of her dead father at his funeral in their house and it's interrelationship drama between the people in her family. And that to me is a cultural export. I would love to see that in other cultures, right? That stuff's interesting. You never think about that. It goes right over your head. You're trying to figure out how to do the stunt or have the big actor in your movie or whatever. But when you have good actors in your film that are having these really great scenes, and I'm sorry, Heather, I just have to say your work in that movie is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It's just
Chris.
really, really good.
Thank you.
There's a different model in
sells
Europe,
well.
though. The model isn't so much star-driven in Europe. It's more story and content-driven in Europe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's a whole. You don't raise. You're not raising a lot of times based on the names.
That would maybe explain why there's so many markets outside the U.S. that you go to. It's like North America, and then like all these other places all over the world.
Yeah, and there's a lot of there's a lot of government funds for cinema. In Portugal and France, and so it's a lot about that, and them awarding that money.
Yeah.
I would say it's a better system.
Yeah. I mean, you go to see more for sure. I mean, if you love art films or films from Eastern Europe, Western Europe, China, whatever. I mean, there's just so much great content going on there, which is why the tariff situation, don't get me started. But anyway.
So how do you go about, like, because, it's just, I'm always just congratulate people when they make anything, because it's so hard. Like, how do you go about choosing things, knowing what you know now and how difficult it is?
It's funny. A lot of the people you've had on the show in the past have talked about how, you've even said stuff like, you don't choose this thing because then you have to live with it for whatever.
Years, yeah.
Well, when you live here in Austin, Texas, and it dries up, or you just have to kind of take what you need because as a freelance producer or whatever, you're a Ronin in a lot of ways.
No, you're shipping wars, you're doing commercials, you're doing what you got. Yeah, you're doing what you got to.
So you take what can fill the void. And part of your job...
Mine would be Chuck E. Cheese. So many Chuck E. Cheese commercials were the bane of my existence.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Hundreds and hundreds of kids coming through. More energy, more energy, more energy.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've done stuff like that, where it's just like a crowd work with a bullhorn.
Yeah.
It's going hoarse. Like, all right, everybody, yell! People come up after and it's like, that's great. It's so good. And you're like, great. I just made $200 today. That's my day rate.
We will take Chuck E. Cheese as a sponsor for the show, just to say.
Yes, please.
Or Peter Piper Pizza. I love Peter Piper Pizza. No, just kidding. You're probably dead. But yeah, I mean, those kinds of jobs, I usually friends would come to me. Lee Eddy is a really dear friend, right? Coming back the circle. She made her first foray into directing last year with You're Invited to Tuscan's Fifth Birthday Party, which played, I think it opened at a really amazing French film festival, which I can't remember right now. And it's played Nashville, it's played Maryland, it's played, I think it was in Seattle, I can't remember, New Orleans, just about her dealing with grief of parenting, of having kids. And, it's great when you go to these festivals and you come out and people are stopping Lee, like older women, and they're like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And you spoke to me. You spoke to me through this movie. And it's just really awesome to have to put yourself, it's like empathetic therapy. You're putting yourself in a position that you would never find yourself in a million years as like a white cis male or whatever with no kids. And you're experiencing how these movies are talking about these really great subjects like love and grief and therapy and how humans process all that change, like these really amazing, like not tentpole, but like these foundational pillars of being a human, And so that's what was so great about Stephanie's movies, because I'm not I lost my father. I think that was my pitch to her when we sat down and first met. I was like, we have this in common. I just want to put that out there right away, like from cancer. I think we both lost our dad from cancer. So we had that as a connection point. And I think it made us just grow closer and closer as we made that movie. And the same thing with Lee's movie. I mean, Lee and I can't tell you, I mean, I've known her it's 20 years now, So for her to call me and say, I'd like to try and make this movie. And I was just like, this is an honor. I'm honored that you would do this. I know lots of these people who can come in and I'll introduce you to all these people and you'll become their friends and you'll be in the fold,
And that's an interesting one because that's an adaptation from her one-woman piece that she did
That's right.
as a live
theater at Fringe Festival, which is the largest.
That's where it started.
Frontera Fest at Hyde Park Theater. It's the largest Fringe festival in Southwest United States. It's so big. It probably funds most of Hyde Park Theater's, annual budget through the year. I may be lying, Ken. Sorry.
But it's an interesting transformation to watch that go from when I saw it, which was live on stage, to then she must have come to Chris at some point and said, I want to make this as a short film. And to watch her turn that live theater performance that's just her on the stage with these props into a full film with, cast of kids and
That's right.
a horse and,
I think Macon was in there for a second. Yeah.
and just
And Macon helped direct, It
yeah,
was great.
all kinds of chaos ensues.
Yeah.
And then she's got herself a full-fledged short film.
Yeah.
Is a really must have been an interesting process.
It was so interesting. I mean, Lee also carries, I think, and she wouldn't kill me to say this, but she also carries like a certain level of anxiety with her a lot of the time. And it's got to be so scary stepping into this, this world, this industry when you're trying to do this putting so much money on the line and stuff like that. So again, it's just me feeling like totally grateful that she would look to me to help her put this on the screen. Like Don Swanos calls me and is like, "Hey, Mark Reeb, we're gonna make this this Roger's a serial killer movie at Christmas time." I love making movies at Christmas. I love movies about Christmas and making movies at Christmas time. So
why at Christmas?
I mean, it's a special time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're shooting film, if you can afford that. Christmas lights, that whole look.
Okay.
There's just so many great moments in movies.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Sunset Boulevard the other day. Do you remember when I don't know if you guys seen that. Do you remember he calls the girl that he's dating? She's at a party. It's a Christmas party.
Yeah.
It looks so warm and inviting.
Yeah.
He's stuck at the production office working on whatever he's trying to do or whatever. And I just remember go to the Christmas vibes.
Yeah.
That's where everything's warm and fun. All the Christmas parties we go to, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just a great time of year, honestly. And
there's space too. Things slow down.
everything slows down.
Yeah.
Humans become very retrospective and they pensive about the world and their lives. And I know there's something
on the year.
It has nothing to do with religion. Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's just more about the cold. And I don't know. Don was like, "I want to make this really funny movie." And Barbara Crampton was like, "I'll come out." And Chris Dubek made a time for it. And Mark Reeb, who's so incredible, was there. And I got my buddy Michael Trejo to come do a little cameo in it. And Sarah Paxton, Zach Krieger's wife, he came down. She came down and she was in it. And it turned out to be great,
Yeah.
And Don's an editor by trade. So, I knew that was going to be great. And that was 2 of the 4 short films I made that year. And I was just you start thinking to yourself, am I becoming a short film producer? And they're so great because you can see everything. With features, the view has to be a lot more macroscopic to see everything.
Yeah.
With shorts, I don't mind saying I'll AD for you and produce it because I can do that. I know I can plan enough ahead for the 3 days we're shooting, 4 days we're shooting, and get us through that.
There's also this pressure that's off of you to return some sort of investment. Or,
that's right.
Yeah, it's
that's right.
We're doing this maybe on the hopes that we'll make a feature out of it, but it's we're doing this for the art of doing it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I think in a lot of the ways, short films are probably one of the purest expressions of cinema.
Yeah.
I have a friend in London who's a critic and he's like, "I don't like shorts, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, okay, well, whatever. In some ways it's different because it's harder.
Yeah.
You have to convey, I feel like the shorter films are the hardest.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
A 2-minute film?
For sure.
Well, that's why I even like a good 30-second commercial that's really, really good, how hard that is to really tell that story in 30 seconds.
Yeah, a story.
Yeah.
A whole story.
Yeah.
But how do you guys pay for short films?
Well, there's always money out there, right? You just have to harness it. Some short films are paid for by the filmmakers. Some short films are paid for by a affluent individual who has money and loves cinema, and they will come make your movie.
Personal supporters.
I think Don's movie, we didn't pay people a lot of money. It was for the love, I made another movie in Houston, which is going to come out. I think it's at the Miami Film Festival for African American Film, which is this movie called Ree's Destiny. I made this film with this guy named Stephen Mosley, who works for Hulu and ABC in LA, and he and his lady worked on this movie, and so that's going to premiere next month there. And that was, I think, largely paid for by him. And yeah, and then Sean Fallon and Charlie Fallon are these 2 new filmmakers who moved here from LA a couple of years ago, and they've been making really kind of amazing work. A lot of it centered around children and birthing children and abortion and that kind of thing, which that's like a red beacon. It tracks me. That's the stuff I move towards. I'm like, let's have conversations about abortion in Texas. Yeah. I will talk about that all day long. And they just made a short called One with the Lightning with Katie Folger and Brian Villalobos. And it's amazing.
Yeah,
You
Brian's amazing.
Brian's amazing. Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of, you can find corporate sponsorship that have, like for theater and for shorts, you can find, like, I know I was in a theater in LA and we got corporate sponsorship from Wells Fargo because they always had a grant,
Yeah. I'll be totally transparent. Like, financing has always been like the hardest.
Oh, it's the hardest. Like,
which I always think about my dad, the salesman, right? He eventually wound up doing like A&R finance stuff on Fords and stuff like that. He would sell you a financing package. And even my very first job at like 15, before the grocery store job, he had me in a Ninja Turtle outfit in front of his used car dealership.
Amazing.
Flipping a sign.
dude, I got to talk to you about a show idea I have about that. Yeah. That's
I love
great.
it. Let's make it.
Yeah. I have no money.
Let's make it. Let's make it with no money. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just part of the game. It's like, does the project have legs? Do you believe in it? And if you believe in it, then by all means, let's do it. And then there's projects that have money that maybe you don't believe in, but you're like, who the fuck am I?
Yeah, I got to work.
Maybe it comes around and change, and I got to work,
Yeah.
So this year specifically, I mean, the thing that sucks about 2025 so far is that I can probably count on two hands the number of jobs I've had, which is shocking for the first time in my career. And I'll be honest about that. The number of jobs that I've vetted or done free work, like building budgets for or whatever, twice as many, three times as many.
That's another thing that gets taken advantage of if you know how to do. It's like, hey, can you build me a schedule? Can you build me a budget?
Yeah. If I have to write something down, I'll charge people.
Okay.
But if it's just me making calls over to ATX Studios to find out what the square footage rate is going to be over there, or my art director, production designer guy to figure out what's the current cost of lumber materials and kind of like put that all in a ballpark for a guy, I'll do that.
But a detailed budget, you can go through 20 versions.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm developing stuff right now, like features with people right now who, Lauren Pruitt comes to mind. She's this amazing filmmaker in Bushwick, and she has an amazing script. It's a vampire script, but it's not like heavy vampire. It's more about this female lead. She's trying to find her place in the world, in this crazy world we live in. And that's just like kind of like a thing that wraps around it. And she won a couple screenplay competitions, and we've been taking meetings with people, like different fund people with different funds. And, nothing is coming through yet. But I believe in it. I mean, I've been working on it for 2 years, and Lauren's been working on it for 4.
Yeah.
So it's just there. You're always developing, right? Like maybe we need to go back to the script and make it better or change it, that kind of.
When you have, it's like you have this one, it takes 2 steps. This one takes 2 steps. This one goes back down. The market changes. It's like you kind of need like 10 things, especially if you have a production company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I got called for a job. I don't know if I should mention this, but I got called for a job that Shane Gillis might produce a show for Netflix later on this year, and they just needed like initial spec conversations about costs in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So like if that comes through, great. It's just a seed that's planted down the line, And I've got a couple of those seeds planted, but the seeds aren't paying.
I'd say 40-50% of the calls we get, like it doesn't award or they don't get it or So
I had 3 commercials that happened. 3 commercials in the last month.
Yeah, that didn't award.
They were like, we're going to get you. And this one guy was like, I'm going to bring you on. And I think I can just elevate you to producer for this because I've got other things I got to work on. I was like, okay. It's like, and my rate is, $1 million. And they're like, sure. I'm like, fucking commercials.
Yeah.
And why did I not get on the commercial track as a young age? Like, why did I choose the indie feature thing?
Yeah.
And the answer is they're just more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just more creativity and more fun.
I mean, at the end of the day, you remember the good ones. You don't remember the cereal commercial.
I won't remember working on the Gel Blasters commercial, or whatever, even though there are some things that, you can recall. I will remember working with people that I still work with today on things that like happened on set, that were awesome.
Oh, for sure.
Or performances that
even like
I can never
the
forget.
house theater thing you did, or the Shakespeare,
Yeah.
Like that stuff I look back on, and that's my fondest memories are the stuff that was just pure, just grit and love,
Yeah. That's why South by was so awesome back in the day too, because it was just so, it felt gritty and it felt like a lot of love. And like 2,000 bands from all over the world are going to come to this city for a week?
Yeah.
And I can just bump around from venue to venue?
It felt so good.
I remember being in
see some of the-
Sundance, and there was no sponsorship, and it was like you're in the cold, and everyone's like, "Dude, we're gonna freeze to death if we don't get." And you jump in a car, and you're with all these stars, and you go to some house, and it's like now it's just like this isn't a film festival.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. All the festivals I go to, I'm like, this doesn't feel like a film festival. It feels like a a marketing tool.
Yeah, I think it always goes back to like the things that are starting out.
Yeah.
If you were to move away from Austin, you'd go to a smaller city with less people that maybe you feel like you have a chance of like influencing in some capacity through your business or whatever, however you express yourself. And I think film festivals are the same way. There's definitely some smaller ones out there, but they have the detriment of being small and not funded as well.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're necessarily
and plus
bad.
everyone is trying to get noticed. So you're going to Tribeca, Toronto. You're trying to get in all those first,
Mm-hmm.
We have one coming out in Oklahoma, but we actually made a decision to not go because we wanted to, it's a documentary. We wanted to serve the people it's about, And I don't know, for me, that was the right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll,
not that any of the other ones called and said we want.
No, I know, and it's harder and harder to get in right now too to those festivals.
How much does the like what's going on in the world play into like the decision of a festival? Because it seems like what's hot or the genre politically or
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to talk to about something like that. I see like sometimes there's DEI initiative stuff baked into choosing stuff.
Yeah,
festivals need to have like a certain optics regarded with the movies that they're making.
Yeah.
So, and I definitely love some of the work that things like Sundance and festivals like Sundance and Tribeca and other festivals are doing to like foster independent voices.
The Sundance Lab. I mean, I think it's great. Yeah,
exactly. But like there's still plenty. I mean, there's still plenty of movies that aren't. That don't fit the mold that are still getting to go to festivals and stuff like that. There's just more people applying now. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, other than Sundance and Tribeca, I mean, do you guys feel like the festival market is still valuable, or is it?
I don't.
I mean, what is
my opinion?
Do you think?
Define value. Like,
I don't think you go, and it's very rare that you get in and then you get a deal, and and that changes the course of you. I mean,
I think that's a pipe dream.
What is its purpose? It seems
like the golden
bloated.
elevator.
It seems like it's just an overpriced party. It seems like maybe a handful of directors get agents out of it, but other than that, like what
sales
does it
agents
actually
maybe
do?
still are like, okay, I can help sell this. Maybe
because I feel like even the bigger movies, it's like. Now it's like the bigger movies already have their deal and they'll have a little premiere there or whatever. And then other people, it's like your movie just goes to Netflix. But like, other than that, like what is its purpose, do you think still?
I don't know. It
doesn't feel much like a discovery place anymore.
Well, Stan has Mission Impossible playing, so I think...
Oh, okay. I never heard of that one.
In 2019, there's this movie called Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which... it's so incredible.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing film.
Amazing.
And that filmmaker, Skimara, I forgot her first name. You'd be hard pressed to see any of her movies before or after. You wouldn't know. She's made 2 movies since then.
Yeah.
And I think Portrait of a Lady on Fire went to Cannes or something to that effect. And she's not in a different place now than she was. I mean, other than having that movie under her belt. So it's got to be more internal. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you need to take more ownership about the things that you've done with your career than waiting for the successes to be given to you
especially now as it
by the
crumbles.
gatekeepers, who they are.
Which is crumbling. And I think there's a real opportunity, as I've said a million times on here, for us to go find an audience that supports this great sort of art,
Yeah. And again, like this is one of my biggest fears, but making stuff for nothing, you get so much pushback because it doesn't usually get done right, and it usually opens itself up to some sort of exploitation in some capacity. But if you can navigate that, if you can have honest conversations with people, grips, makeup people, wardrobe folks, just in advance about what you're trying to do and why you want them to help you, that's a sell. If they can get on board and do it, then you're doing something. And that I think has value.
Yeah.
Right? Making stuff for as little as possible and then trying to present that in a film festival, to me, that seems like the only way for folks like us is to do that.
Right. And
Leeds is a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Great film, made for next to nothing. I mean, Brian Poiser, bless his heart, strung that together. And I think a lot of people were looking at early on like,
where does this fit?
And here we are at a festival, a top tier festival that I think has 160 films total playing features, maybe 120 films features, and he's in that group. And then on top of that, I think 25 playing competition or 20, and he's in that. I mean,
12 in the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot less. I think I wanted to pretend there was more because I was like, how can it be 12?
12.
But that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
And that, to me, gives me a lot of inspiration. I take inspiration from Brian. I take inspiration from Heather and all the people that that helped make it.
Yeah.
Because I met a lot of those people, a lot of those kids, and they were doing something that was really cool.
Those kids are pretty special.
I mean, that's what I think we've kind of shifted into is the celebration of that, right? Here on this podcast is like, look, we want to celebrate what you made because it's incredible.
Yeah.
And we know from being in the business, it might not get out to the masses. So let's at least like have a moment where we raise our glasses up and say,
That's right.
You know?
Yeah,
That's right. Finding like the biggest actor, the best actor, it really just all boils down to the story you're trying to tell, honestly.
And I feel like even finding the biggest festival and the biggest buyer and the biggest whatever, it still might not because there's so much noise in the room.
And I think people get anxious about that.
Yeah. And
they kill themselves before they step out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I can fall in love almost if the performance and the creative's there with someone I don't know, I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a blank slate and I don't have all these references for that actor, you know?
That's right. And I mean, both of you probably know a bunch, like me. This is the thing that going back and forth between theater and film's always done is that I know a lot of good actors.
Great.
Here in town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will very often call our good friend Carol Hickey, who runs an acting school.
I'm like, my office is there.
Exactly. Who's circulating there right now? I need a 16-year-old who's good, for this play I'm producing later.
I mean, Mars, Dubek, like there's so many guys that are just so good and, they're doing their thing, but it's like.
Brian Villalobos.
Yeah, Villalobos is great.
Sorry, Brian.
Yeah.
He's like on my TV every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So, I love that kind of thing, but it definitely gives me inspiration. It makes me feel grateful that it makes me feel like there's still a part of Austin worth saving. There's part of it that's like, it hasn't all gone to shit, And I have friends who are like, there's still these good parts of the city. There's still these good things happening.
Like Gabe comes back and does stuff for people.
Yeah.
Like people, people still support us here.
For sure.
I think we're at time. You got anything else you want to?
No.
Oh, I have to give you this.
What do we got?
This is just a surprise.
You brought surprises?
This is for both of you.
This is for her.
This is something that I like to get my crew people on sets.
Well, for those on the radio,
these are called golden eggs.
He brought us a goodie in a bag. This looks delicious. What is it?
And there's only one place in all of the world, aka Austin, that you can find a golden egg.
Okay, where?
Walton's Fancy and Staple.
Is
Sandra Bullock's place.
Home place.
Yeah,
so I will very often go here out of my way on one random morning on a film set and bring people a box of these.
Oh my
because
God.
it just changes their total dynamic.
I'm not even going to tell. I'm going to wait till we cut before I tell you something to go try because I don't want
Okay.
Because they only have a limited amount.
Yeah. No, same thing here.
Yeah.
I very much bought these people out every morning. You're like, what is it? I don't even know.
Oh my
you
God.
can't be told what's in a golden egg.
Yeah.
You have to
I'm going to experience
it for yourself.
You're pretty brave to eat on camera. That's
Oh
good.
my God, I need like an English breakfast tea or like
I know.
Oh, I'm going to save mine for
a
that.
cappuccino.
Sure. Yeah. It's great.
Anything you need to promote?
Thank
or
you,
But the
anything?
reason why I brought you guys that real quick was just because I
You
realized
love us.
this is like your 2-year anniversary.
Oh my God, is it?
And I don't know if it's down to the day, but
No,
I
it's
watched
not.
Yen Tan's, which if I'm not mistaken is the first one, right?
Yes.
And the release on it on YouTube says August, but in the interview, you say something about what you were wearing, Heather, and you were like, I'm wearing a turtleneck and it's May. So it made me think
That's right.
you're somewhere
Yeah.
around now,
Yeah.
right?
No way.
Yeah.
Was your 2-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So congratulations
Well,
to you guys
I
for doing
appreciate
this
it.
so long.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
I think that the show is incredible.
I'm
and I
you.
think
literally going to
that
start crying.
even if you ever feel like this is not, if you're just, why are you doing it? Just keep doing it. Because, and I'll take
That's
this back.
exactly what it is because
I'm literally starting to cry.
No.
our numbers.
It's so good because, listen, I'll tell you something. I
Mm.
made a show, and you mentioned it in my bio, called Standup Empire. And I'll let you know that I'm not afraid to let you know that I made these episodes, 2 seasons of 6 episodes each, for about $22.50 an episode. Okay, which I think anybody who hears that will just be like, "What the fuck?
What?
How do you do that?"
Yeah. Well, I think if we went through some of your budgets too, they'd probably say, "What the fuck? How do you
That's
do
right.
that?"
That's right. I was being funded by a gaming icon, Mike Wilson,
Yep.
and Stephen Hurd, who owns the Empire Control Room.
Yeah.
That's where we did it out of or whatever. And Jenny, my wonderful, beautiful wife, Jenny Marie
Jenny
Genesis,
Marie.
designed,
Great
did a lot
actress.
of designing for us
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And she's an amazing actor. We were showcasing some of the greatest comedic talent in Austin. And the whole thing was like, come up with your David Letterman, your TV show, tight 10, and come on the thing and do it. And we did 12 people up there. 2 of them would always have to just be cut out because they would cuss or say something totally blue that we'd have to cut them out. And then we do an interview with them and talk to them about like their roots and their origins and whatever. And it was like Chris Cubis. I think our season 2 head of season 2 was Andrew Dismukes, who's on SNL right now.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
And Devin Walker, who's also on SNL, was also on site. And we made a season 3, but it never made it to the day because we just ran out of money. Go figure.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking that was like 2016, 2017. And about 2 years after that, maybe 3 years, right before COVID, comedy shops on every corner in the city.
Yeah.
And you drive by them on a Friday or Saturday night, the lines are down the block and around the corner.
I mean, Mothership's crushing.
And I'm just thinking to myself, like,
Oh.
why did I ever stop making this show? I mean, I was writing, I was directing, I was producing. I was sitting in a chair next to this beautiful man named Dan Tarr, editing it with him. And I just think to myself, if I had still been making that show today, somebody would have come and knocked.
Yeah. I can
Well,
tell you,
thanks to
rent
John
was
Williams
due.
for still making this show.
So keep making this
We're
show.
trying, dude. We're trying.
Because
for
it's
sure.
great. Even going back now, I'm still pulling nuggets out of old interviews that
That's what
I've
I
seen
think.
and
I think
heard.
that we'll have a lot that people will finally discover, and they'll be like, "Oh wow," That's what I'm counting on. That when we do get some exposure, I don't even care at this point because it's just nice to sit down with the people who've gone through the trenches. We've all worked so hard in our lives to just try to like stay in this business, and it's like, again, I just want to celebrate people that are, that are one just in our community and create good stuff,
And there are a lot.
Yeah,
there are a lot of those
there are a
people.
lot.
And some of them are even kids now.
Yeah,
Like the last movie I did was like a whole Gen Z crew,
yeah,
which was a whole new thing to be on set.
yeah.
I'm like aging out, you know what I'm saying? Which is
Yeah.
also has its own fears. I'm like, shit, am I gonna
Well, the transformation of where we're going and everything, and we don't have to get into that, but it's a crazy transformation of our industry right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to get even better.
It's
I'll
going
start-
to
I'm
get
gonna-
better.
I
I'm
think
going to
so.
start singing karaoke.
I think if you can adapt to using all the new tools, I think
Nobody
that
gets
someone
it,
like
yep.
you could really prosper because you're going to be able to know how to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my curse and my advantage, I think.
But
It's like-
I don't know that what you used to have to bargain with is going to cost you as much, to do,
Yeah.
Just with the new tools that are coming out.
Yeah. You're talking about AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. AI is funny and cool and like your warm bedfellow. And I know people who are like, love it and have been using it a lot every day, just using up all those millions of gallons of water.
Yeah.
And I know people who are terrified of it. And I think fear comes from a place of the lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real and understandable. But it's here.
Yeah.
It's here,
with
and
us.
there's a cross section of still. I mean, I think humanity, when AI gets everywhere, humanity becomes more valuable. You know, and becomes this precious commodity.
And that's part
that
of it.
you want.
Is how does it make us better?
Yeah.
Which is what I'm always asking any new innovation. It's like, how is this making us better?
Right.
Because if it's not, then
You also got to say to people, like, how's that landline and that DVD player working out? How is that, that the 16 millimeter camera? It's like it just progresses, and that's what we're doing.
but then we go back to it.
I know.
Like vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Humans are the stupidest cyclical creatures.
That's
in
what I'm
the
saying.
world.
There'll be
Yeah.
this cross section where it's like we hit, certain people will hit the mark just right.
That's right.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you can kind of, you guys are old enough to know like what's going to come back around. You ever sit around and think about that?
Yeah.
I think it's
I just-
great. We just always have to not take it so far that we eradicate ourselves, right? We have to not let the machines destroy us because we're going to get to a point where we're going to go, we get it. We see what's valuable about humanity. We love us.
Yeah.
We want to be able to do that thing again where we just lay in the grass and look at the stars.
You're talking about breaking the cycle.
Yeah, we got to be able to like stop
Yeah.
the machine before we get too far.
Yeah.
Like let it do too much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, we want to let it do all the things so we can just be human and
That's right.
like
That's what
Be-
I say.
because-
Let it do the spreadsheets. Let it
Yeah,
do the budgets.
yeah.
Let it do the schedules. Let it do all
because the
this stuff.
things that make humans great are never going to be the things that the machines can do for us.
Bill Gates said, he was like, he made a speech the other day and he was like, we weren't built to work. It's not who we are.
No.
You know, we're built to have this human experience.
Yes.
Not sit in cubicles. And he's like, it's hard for me, you know, to even get my mind wrapped around there might be a day where we don't have to do all this stuff.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let the machines do that so we can just be simple human people.
And I live in spreadsheet land, you know.
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah.
I can just tell you.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying. Production and the paperwork is just insane. Especially
so insane.
You location scout, you do all this stuff, and then you're back, like you said, working all night, putting together a schedule, making sure you got the call sheets, make sure, you know, everybody's...
But we got to make sure we also create a parallel world where we are valued for humanity. We are valued for being humans.
Mhm.
We got to make sure that we have that lane preserved.
Otherwise they'll just take over.
Otherwise they'll just be robot land.
I mean, I don't think, how would we? Because we're human. We're not going to we're going to be like, well, we matter, you know?
But that's the thing I'm afraid of, is that we won't say that.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be people who come up and say, we don't matter and we're horrible when we do these things and
I've seen a lot
we
of
don't deserve this.
I've seen a lot of
there's that
people
too.
vote themselves into extinction just recently.
There's this thing about humanity that always wants everybody to think and feel the same thing all at once.
Totally.
And the first thing you learn when you get into movies, you know, is that you'll never be able to please 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I thought that there was nobody who thought Good Will Hunting was a bad movie until I met that person.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, and plus everybody has this crazy different reality. You think that everybody's experiencing the world like you, and they're just not.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they have a completely...
But that's fine too.
Yeah.
That's fine too.
It's totally fine.
Differences are great.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is that you have to just believe that maybe we're not so different that we don't have anything that's in common, because we certainly do.
Because the magic of storytelling, right? You find that thing that everybody can relate to, and everybody can take what they need from their human experience, and it touches them or moves them. You know. Okay. We thank you. We got to have you back, because there's like hours.
Well, look, let me just
on a very special episode.
Yeah, promote two
in
things.
The room.
Two things. One,
that camera.
that camera. One, I am speaking of spreadsheets and stuff. I'm trying to put together this outfit. I'll just leak it now. I don't know, we'll call it Chris Gets You Cars or something. It's like a car brokerage spreadsheet situation where I've just come across too many. I love cars. My dad sold them. I've just come across too many vehicles in the city and know people who have too many amazing cars.
Are you going to give us a car?
That I just, and right over here. No, I just think that there's a place for those to be in film in a way that I don't have to like own a bunch of cars sitting in a lot outside of the city where I have to drive it to you or whatever. I think like having like a really cool brokerage where you can look through a database and say, I need a cop car, an ambulance, this commercial, or I need a 1970. Somebody asked me the other day, he's like, I need a 2005 Ford F-150, red if you have it. I'm like, well, okay.
Let me go to my closet.
I mean, I knew a guy, so then I called that guy and I was like, hey man, can I take your car on Monday? I'll give you this much money. I'm taking this much. And then that's kind of where the idea popped into my head. If I can figure out a way to pick up a car from someone, clean it, get it to them, be responsible for it, bring it back, give them money, why would they say no?
I think there's that, and I think locations is that too as well. Doing that with locations, because it seems like it's always.
And that's something I do a lot of too, especially in the later docuseries I've worked on and stuff like that. Yeah. The other thing is I'm producing a play, surprise, surprise, in the fall at Hyde Park Theater called Apprehension by a local playwright named LB Dio. It's a new work, and lo and behold, a lot of these people who I mentioned in this podcast. My wife, Jenny Marie Jemison, my friend Michelle Keffer, my friend Jeff Mills, a bunch of people I know in the old acting chops are going to be in this show.
Nice. And
it's going to be awesome, and you guys should definitely come see it.
For sure.
It'll be at Hyde Park Theater in October. We'll start promoting it soon. Plays have their own different world.
Yeah.
Plays are like the redheaded stepchild of film. There's even less money. So you're just like, yikes. But again, you do hit that point at some place where you're just like, this is love. This is so great, and it's so fun.
To that point, I think Tarantino talked about this too. I think that human experience will start to matter more, and people will go to more theater because they're going to crave that human connection.
I think you're right.
Hope, you know?
Yeah, the live connection is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very real
there's
thing.
certain things I don't think that you're going to get away with, because especially with all the fraud, like you're going to have to know that you're having this human experience with someone, whether it's sales or it's, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I think
It's
Gen
inevitable.
Z is going to need it more than anyone.
For
I
sure.
think they're going to seek it out.
I mean, I think you're already starting to see stuff. I don't know, what was that show? Adolescence on Netflix?
Yeah.
Those 4 episodes?
Yeah.
That's kind of like theater in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those actors, the guy who created it, what's his name? Graham? I forgot the lead guy.
Yeah.
He has to save up his emotional arc trajectory for that entire 60 minutes that they're filming this thing, you know, in real time.
Yeah.
To lose it at the end. I mean, to me, that's just like, that is
hard.
That's hard.
That's theater.
And that's
for sure.
theater.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's why I love when like new stuff smacks you over the head like that.
Well, that's the whole thing too. We're not bound by these sort of restrict 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 30-minute show. It's like I think that the more creative we get, and if it's 5 minutes or 90 minutes, Scorsese said that. He goes, you can make something for 3 hours if you can hold their attention, or 10 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah. And now we have access to the world. And that's what I'm saying. You guys, you have access to everybody. You just got to find a way to be creative and get them to support you, you know?
Go make stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell a good story.
Tell a good story.
Anything
Live
else?
a good story.
That's it.
Awesome, man.
Thank
On
you
a
so
very
much for
special
having me
episode
here.
with Christopher Shea.
You
Thanks
guys
for
are
coming.
amazing.
Dude, yeah, we're going to bring you in as a co-host, I think.
Yes, we are.
Well, you're
Yes, we are.
actor. Yeah, I think that there's a world where that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, it could.
I would say yes, just right off the bat.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
just say yes. I'll bring all the golden eggs you can eat.
It's on the table.
John, I expect you to eat that golden
I
egg
will.
later.
No, I'm gonna
I know
eat it with
you're-
tea.
You got a whole thing.
I'm going to eat it with tea. But yeah, man, that's a good idea. Let's have you on to just like, if you have anyone you're interested or want to bring on, let's do it.
I think there's tons of people.
Yeah.
There's so many
Thanks.
people out there.
Yeah. Let's do it, man.
Next
All right.
week's episode is Clay Lyford.
You gotta create the bios though.
Oh, are you passing that off to him now?
Here comes the money. It's always money that perverts everything in this industry. It's
Yeah,
like as soon
because
as money comes
you're going to
into
make
it-
him write stuff down. He's
Yeah.
going to charge us.
No, I will still mess it up for everybody. Thank you, dude.
You're great. Thank
Yeah,
you, John.
Appreciate it.
Our show today was recorded in studio by the good folks at Record ATX. Check them out at recordatx.com. Our theme music is produced by Jonathan Price. You can check out some of the sounds he makes with his project, The Mid-Cities, on Spotify. Follow, subscribe, and smash that like button if you see one. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.